What's up, you guys? Adam here with Anabolic Climbing, and today is one of those days where I get to eat a little bit of crow and say, look, some new information has come out. I might have to reevaluate some of my previous theories, and we're going to get into some of the scientific literature. But before we do, if you guys like some of these study overviews and breakdowns and going over some data on tendons and anabolics, please do not forget to hit the like, subscribe, and alert. It helps the channel out tremendously. Drop us a comment. The channel is definitely growing really rapidly. And without any further ado, let's hop into a couple of studies, do some table setting, and get into it. So, if we go into some of my previous research, what we ultimately find, or what I found prior, is I was under the impression, based off of a couple different animal models, particularly in rats, that at least with compounds like Nandrolone, that it basically created collagen dysplasia or an excess in collagen deposition. And I wasn't pulling that out of thin air. There were a couple of different studies that were seen in rats that gave them a boatload of DECA, and I mentioned that, but it appears that for anabolic users at large, that might not be the case. Additionally, going off of animal models is helpful, but it's not the be-all, end-all. It's also entirely possible that with human data and humans taking drugs, that we see different results. So let's go into the first of the two studies where we're actually looking at tendon ruptures in humans and see what's going on with the tendons themselves. So, in this study in University of Wales College, I believe this is in the 90s, they basically did a ultrastructural analysis of ruptured tendons from normal folks and anabolic users. I believe what happened was all of these folks were between the ages of 28 to 38 years old. They were in the orthopedics department between the range of 95 to 97. Two of the patients that were there admitted to using anabolics. 3 of them did not. And they had unilateral injuries in one of their forearms. So, we don't know what drugs these folks took. We just know that they took anabolics. And from there, they basically had surgeries on the bicep tendons. They did a biopsy of said tendons. They took a look at the mechanisms of what was going on in the morphological structures. And by the way, this is gross and a little graphic, but what they found was there were no real differences in the lattice structure and the tendon structure between the enhanced folks and the non-enhanced folks. Additionally, and this is what I was not expecting to see, you know, we talked about some of the collagen dysplasia that we saw in the rat models. When you go through the study, in a transverse section, the fibrils had mostly a smooth profile or homogeneous content, but there were areas which fibrils frayed or exhibited the appearance in such areas of collagen dysplasia were observed in both the steroid users and the control tendons. Holy crap. So, what we're finding is it doesn't matter if you are an anabolics user or not, the potential for collagen dysplasia in the tendons is possible. After this, after having their tendons cut open, all of them returned back to sport. Some of them had some reduced abilities to rotate their forearms and persistent pain, but one of them even went on to compete in a national level bodybuilding contest, which is awesome. The principal study finding was the failure to identify ultrastructural differences between the tendons of patients straining tendons and ruptures while self-administering anabolic steroids compared with patients that did not take steroids. In particular, no defect in collagen fibril structures were identified. This is in people, not in rats. This is important information, and it challenges some of the previous theories. Again, we don't know what drugs these guys were taking. For all intents and purposes, they were just running testosterone or just running equipoise or just running tren for all we know. We don't know. But in these particular humans that did anabolics of some sort, their tendons looked exactly the same. So what if we dial that in a little bit more and go into just Nandrolone? This next study on Nandrolone, Decanoate, and loading increasing remodeling in human supraspinatus bioartificial tendons, what happened was They basically created some bioartificial tendons in Duke University, and then they introduced Nandrolone Decanoate, and they created 4 different groups. You had your control group that did not have any loading and did not have any steroids. Then you had the next group that had loading but no steroids. Then you had a steroid non-loading group and a steroid loading group. And they looked at the mechanical resilience and how much overall force the tendon could hold, as this is a artificial tendon in vitro. And they wanted to take a look at the mechanical properties of this in humans. What did they find? Well, not only did the lattice structure look the best on the Nandrolone model in humans, but it also handled the most load. This is non-load, non-steroid, non-load, steroid, load, non-steroid, load, steroid. Also, after, I believe, 8 to 12 weeks, even after the Nandrolone was discontinued, you could not tell the difference in tendon. Now, part of that we intuitively understand, because when we go back to the rat studies, we remember that that exercise is tendon protective. So even after you discontinued the Nandrolone and you increased exercise, tendons were able to remodel back to baseline. And we did not see the excess collagen deposition, I don't even think, in the steroid loading or in the steroid non-loading groups. So could this be partly due to the 100 or N per M of the Nandrolone issued? Yeah, it's possible. It's a lot less than the doses that were given to the rats, which I believe was 600 milligrams. It might have actually even been 1,200. But regardless, we could see better tendon outcomes in an injury state, not even in a healthy tendon, than what we got from the rodent models. So what does this mean? If you guys go back to my previous Nandrolone experiment, I started gaining weight a lot faster than I would have planned on. Could part of that have been Nandrolone plus test plus growth hormone? Yeah, it's possible. Could it be possible that Nandrolone still has a positive output on tendons, but when combined with additional anabolics, folks might gain too much size too quickly? It's possible. At the end of the day, strength to weight ratio does matter, but does that mean that it is worth re-looking at Nandrolone as a possible compound for increasing overall collagen synthesis, at least in the doses of 100 milligrams a week? Yeah, suddenly that's back on the table. Additionally, at least in this extraordinarily small cohort, as we're dealing with a couple of in vitro models and a sample size of 2 people, it appears that anabolics are not as deleterious to tendons, and a lot of the fear around the collagen dysplasia does not carry over to people, at least not in the potential anabolics that have been observed. Could this be different for things like Winstrol? And I'll go through and I'll actually recheck that work on that to see if that's in humans or in rats. Yeah, I'm going to have to do that. Additionally, does this mean that anabolics could be leveraged as another mechanism for tendon hypertrophy? Yeah, maybe. Intuitively, this does make somewhat sense, as you still have powerlifters and strongmen and even bodybuilders that get heinously strong even without the use of growth hormone, and their tendons don't rupture out of the gate. Yeah, it's possible these things are more tendon protective than previously hypothesized. I think this is worth going back into and rechecking my work on this. With that said, I also want to recognize that we shouldn't throw out all of the rodent models as well with such a small sample size. We're going to need to test, retest, and figure out some more stuff in this hypothesis. And best believe I'm going to reach out to a couple of different bodybuilding coaches and strength coaches to take a look at some of their anecdotal information and see what they're able to come up with. Obviously, their training modalities are different and their goals are different, but if we're ultimately using the same compounds, even at different doses, and are getting similar outcomes regarding hypertrophy and better tendon resilience, I think it's worth mentioning. Anyway, that's a lot to go over for now. I have a lot more stuff to try to double check. Special thanks to community member Alex for sending this over. This has been incredibly valuable both to me and to the community. And this does mean that some additional studies or self experiments are going to have to be run. Particularly as it relates to NPP or DECA. I don't know if I'm going to run it over the next couple months or if I'm going to hold off until after Rainbow Rocket based off of where I want my weight. But yeah, this justifies another NPP experiment. So I'm going to make sure either myself or someone in the community gives this a whirl. Anyway, this has been a really awesome week for research, really awesome week for the channel regarding different studies that have been brought to the fold, getting new perspectives from different folks that are enhancing. We have some other podcasts that are going to be dropping later in the week. But yeah, man, super exciting. I have not been as on fire for this kind of work as I have been this week. And thank you guys so much for all of your support. It genuinely means a lot. We just passed 300 subs on this channel, and it only took us 2 months to get there from 100. So yeah, the exponential growth genuinely means the world. Anyway, if you guys want to hang out with me and the rest of the community, hop in the Discord in the link down below. I'm adding more articles to the blog, anabolicclimbing.com. If you want to book a consultation with me, either about asking questions about peptides or anabolics or your own protocols, you're welcome to reach out on anabolicclimbing.com or shoot me an email. But yeah, with all that out of the way, I just want to say thank you guys so very much. My name's Adam with Anabolic Climbing, giving you guys a front double on the way out as I am full of Korean barbecue, and I want to wish you guys good luck and happy sending. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.